The season may not be going the way that the Silver and Black expected, but you still have a division rival coming to town on Sunday. What will it take to get the victory? That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for November 22nd, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. You know we definitely appreciate you, whether you're checking us out wherever you find your favorite podcast or if you're checking us out on YouTube. Either way, it's awesome. We do appreciate that, and the show continues to grow each and every day. And of course, the YouTube page, man, it's incredible, right? That's because of the support of Raider Nation, obviously, and because of the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes. We definitely shout him out. We appreciate him. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Producers. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. We will get back to your calls and texts coming up on today's show. As a matter of fact, we'll close out today's show with plenty of feedback, calls, texts, straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. Again, 707-654-4693. We'll give you the keys to victory. We do it every show before a game day or even on game day. If it's a Monday or a Thursday, we'll do it on that day. But since the game's on Sunday at Allegiant Stadium, 1:05 kickoff, the Denver Broncos coming to town, AFC West division title, or not title, but division rival, and they've never won a game at Allegiant. So a little bit of pride on the line for the Silver and Black. We'll talk about how they can get a victory and really build off what they did last week against the Miami Dolphins. We'll do that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and a lot of it just has to do with the Raiders' pretty lengthy injury report. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. And I'll tell you more about them later on in the show. But let's go ahead and get into the injury report. Talked about it on the crossover edition with Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos on Thursday's show. And I said it on Thursday, but he's one of my favorite guys to do the crossovers with. One of the first guys that I ever did a crossover with when I started here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and just a really all-around good dude. So hopefully you appreciated the conversation between me and Cody Rourke on Thursday on the crossover edition. But the Raiders injury report is very lengthy, and I expect it to be very lengthy and really impact the game coming up on Sunday. On Wednesday, the Raiders had 8 guys that did not participate in practice. Jacorian Bennett, Harrison Bryant, Nate Hobbs, Andre James, Jack Jones, Alexander Madison, Justin Shorter, and Zamir White. Those are 8 guys on Wednesday. On Thursday, it got a little bit better, but the guys that are missing, key contributors. Jacorian Bennett dealing with the shoulder injury. He left in the first drive of the game on Sunday against the Dolphins. Did not participate on Thursday. Also, Nate Hobbs, who did not play on Sunday against the Dolphins with the ankle injury, did not participate on Thursday either. Jack Jones, who left the game on Sunday against the Dolphins with a back injury, did not participate. Alexander Madison, who outside of Brock Bowers has really been the offensive MVP for the Silver and Black, did not participate, dealing with the ankle injury. Let's see, who else? Oh, Zamir White, the other running back. Yeah, DMP, did not participate. He's dealing with the quadricep injury. Cody Whitehair was limited on Thursday. Andre James, the center, was limited. And Harrison Bryant, the tight end, was limited with the ankle injury. So we'll get another injury report coming out today. We'll also find out, 90 minutes before kickoff, who's the inactives are. But, man, that is a laundry list of guys that are key contributors. All 3 of your starting corners, Jacorian Bennett, Nate Hobbs, and Jack Jones. Neither one of those guys, any of those guys, have not participated in practice at all this week. That's a big impact, especially when you have a team in Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos coming to town that are playing with some confidence right now. Bo Nix is out there feeling good about himself his rookie year, really starting to get into a groove. And the last thing you want is not to have any of your starting corners out there. So that's something to pay attention to. Also, the running backs. Alexander Madison, I mentioned that he's really been one of the MVPs of the team outside of Brock Bowers. He's been able to get the most production from the running back position, and that hasn't been fantastic, but it's been something, right? And he's caught some passes, got into the end zone. He's ran the ball, got into the end zone. He's done some pretty good things. He left the game on Sunday. There's a good chance he doesn't play coming up against the Broncos, and Zamir White, who hasn't done too much from the running back position, most likely won't play either. So that leaves it to Amir Abdullah and rookie Dylan Lobby. And I believe that Sincere McCormick will probably be called up from the practice squad as well to give him a third running back. But I believe it's going to be the Amir Abdullah and Dylan Lobby show. And remember, Dylan Lobby hasn't been in the game, hasn't had any offensive reps since he fumbled against the Pittsburgh Steelers a few weeks ago. Right? I mean, he got his first career carry. TJ Watt knocked that bad boy out of there. He fumbled, put the ball on the ground, and he never got back in on another offensive rep. Sounds like Sunday is going to be his opportunity to get a little redemption. So it'll be Amir Abdullah and Dylan Lobby. If that's who it is, in fact, that gets to start as the running backs, expect a lot of dump-offs. And we'll talk about keys to victory coming up in segment number 2. I believe you'll see a lot of dump-offs to Amir Abdullah and Dylan Lobby out of the backfield as opposed to trying to run between the tackles. But clearly that's something to pay attention to. And again, if you follow me on Twitter, at your boy Q254, I'll tweet out the injury report from Friday when we get it later on this afternoon. But right now it looks like the walk-in wounded, it's like a MASH unit when you look at the Raiders injury report as of right now. Also, real quick, I want you to hear some sound that I got from my show on ESPN on Thursday night, game night. I had Matt Miller on, and of course, he's a draft guru from ESPN. I've been rocking with Matt Miller for a long time, ever since he was on Bleacher Report, but he has a new mock draft out that he has on ESPN.com, so we wanted to get him on the show just to feature him. It was myself and Emmett Golden, so of course, there's a few sound bites that I wanted to bring to this show so you can just get a good idea of where this draft is stacking up and how it's stacking up so far, even though it's late November. And the first soundbite, I only have 3 of them. The first soundbite is, how is this quarterback class shaping up? Because clearly, when you're talking about the Raiders, you're talking about a need at the quarterback position. Here's Matt Miller.
A very interesting one. It's not like last year where we knew, who some of these guys were, who we knew about the Caleb Williams and the Jaden Daniels and Drake May. We saw, outside of Jaden Daniels, we saw those guys coming in advance. This year is different. Shedeur Sanders is the big name. Obviously, his dad is a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players in, NFL history. There are questions about him. Cam Ward, who's come from nowhere, almost, from Incarnate Ward, goes to Washington State, is good there. Now he's at the University of Miami. He's turning it on. And the names that we thought before the season, Carson Beck at Georgia, Quinn Ewers at Texas, have not taken that next step. So it's an interesting draft class. I don't think any of these 4 quarterbacks I have in round 1 of the mock that came out today, none of them would have been the first or second or third quarterback drafted last year. So if you're a team that's looking for that savior at the quarterback position, this is it's a tough year.
So as many have said, we've said about it and talked about it on the show before, there's not a whole lot to write home about when it comes to the quarterback class. It's not the sexy quarterback class that we saw a year ago when 6 guys went in the top 12. It's not going to be that way this year. As a matter of fact, maybe 4 will probably go in the first round max this year, and a few of those probably won't even have first-round grades, but because teams need quarterbacks, they'll take them in the first round. So the question that I asked him, and you'll hear the question as well, is about the gap between Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And just for reference sake, he had Shedeur Sanders going number 1 overall to the Giants and Cam Ward going number 4 overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. So I asked him the question. Again, you'll hear it. What's the gap between Shedeur and Cam Ward? So in your top 10, you have 2 quarterbacks. You have Shedeur Sanders going number 1, Cam Ward going number 4. How big of a gap is there between Shedeur and Cam?
There's not a big one. I have Shedeur as my number 9 overall player. I have Cam as my number 12 overall player right now, so they're really close. What's funny is they're very different as players. Shedeur, it's all about seeing the field, accuracy. He's got a big arm. With Cam, he's a playmaker, and with that, he's going to beat you with his legs. He has fantastic arm strength. He has a really quick release. But he's also going to hurt you a little bit with some of the plays that he attempts to make. So they're very different guys. The cool thing is they're both super experienced. They're both 4-year starters, and that's something that is kind of becoming, maybe now is more commonplace, but it used to be that was unheard of when the top quarterbacks were 4-year or 5-year guys. So the cool thing is they're both ready to step in and play right away.
Not a big gap, according to Matt Miller, between the 2 quarterbacks. And, of course, they have similarities, but a lot of differences. As you heard Matt Miller really, lay it out there and let it be known what it is. Clearly, it sounds like teams can win with both quarterbacks, and he believes in both quarterbacks. They both have room to grow. We know that. I don't think any rookie's going to walk into the league and just set it on fire. Even Jaden Daniels, who's been amazing this year, is starting to, tail off a little bit due to injury. So there's a lot of, learning curve, bumps and bruises along the way for any quarterback. But wanted you to hear the differences in the gap in between the number 1 quarterback in Matt Miller's eyes, Shedeur Sanders, and the number 4 quarterback, or number 2 quarterback, selected number 4 overall in his mock draft by the Raiders, in Cam Ward out of Miami. The final soundbite I want you to hear from Matt Miller, again, NFL draft analyst from ESPN, was on my radio show on Thursday night, game night. I threw the question out there about Carson Beck from Georgia, who at one point was looked at as probably the number 1 quarterback overall. He clearly has not been that guy this year, but because the Raiders have Brock Bowers, I threw the question out there, is there a chance that he sees where Tom Telesco, the Raiders GM, says, hey, let's go get that quarterback, team him up with his college teammate in Brock Bowers, and all of a sudden, boom, you've got a great 1-2 punch. So here's Matt Miller's thoughts on that. You know, I'm here in Vegas. Obviously, I cover the Raiders, and quarterback is a need. Last year, Tom Telesco selected Brock Bowers. I know Carson Beck is not having a fantastic season at Georgia. How much do you think there could be a chance that Telesco looks at Beck and say, you know what, let me team him back up with his tight end that he had at Georgia, who's clearly a stud in his rookie year?
Yeah, well, I think smart GMs, look at development, and they look at why you were playing well and then why you're not. And a big part of the reason Carson Beck is not playing well is because he misses Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. So that is a huge key. And then, you want to look at what can we do to put a player in a situation to succeed. So I think for Vegas, they have to look at that. You got to figure out where the player's at mentally, after regressing this year. Why is he turning the ball over at the clip that he is? But you need a quarterback. That's obvious after where we're at this year and missing out on the top 6 last year. So I expect that, Tom will do a good job of turning over every leaf possible to find the next quarterback there. And, to his credit, they got a great one in L.A. and Justin Herbert. He did a fantastic job. Maybe you could say that selection fell into his lap a little bit, but they made the right call there and did a good job of identifying the player that year.
I like what he said about Tom Telesco and being able to get the quarterback in Justin Herbert when he was there with the Chargers. Obviously, he was able to identify him, and just like Matt said, you could say that he fell into his lap and he just selected him, but he had to make the pick. He had to ultimately make the pick regardless, right? And sometimes the pick could be right there in front of your face, and it's as obvious as, it's just simply obvious, and you don't make the pick. I promise you, I don't care how much success Miami's having with Tua right now. I guarantee you if they had to do it over again, they'd probably take Justin Herbert as opposed to Tua, because they had that opportunity, but remember, they drafted Tua and let Justin Herbert drop, and the Chargers ended up selecting him. So sometimes the obvious move is right there in front of you, and you still don't do it. So what Tom Telesco's done so far, got 3 starters in the draft in Brock Bowers, JPJ, Jackson Powers-Johnson, and DJ Glaze. Boom, 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 pick 1, pick 2, and pick 3. I would say so far so good for Tom Telesco. And if you're wondering the current order of the draft, according to tankathon.com after Thursday Night Football, and again, it's updated all the time, so this will change after this weekend. But as of right now, the top 5 picks: Jaguars at 1, Titans at 2, Giants at 3, Raiders at 4, Patriots at 5. The Cleveland Browns defeated the Steelers on Thursday Night Football, so they dropped. Even though they only have 3 wins on the season, they dropped down in the order on tankathon.com. Again, that's the top 5 picks, again, according to tankathon.com, if you want to give it a look. So that's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. How do the Raiders welcome in the Denver Broncos on Sunday to Allegiant Stadium, but they pick up a victory? We'll talk about that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, including BetterHelp. And this month, it's all about gratitude. And sometimes it's hard to, be thankful or express our gratitude to others. And it's even very difficult to express our gratitude and our thanks to ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, trust and believe, that isn't easy. So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in life, including yourself. Again, it's very important to make sure you thank yourself and show the gratitude to yourself for doing everything you can to be the best person you could be. Sometimes you may need to talk it out, and you can use therapy to talk it out. So if you've ever thought about starting therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, which is awesome, right? It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you got to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. One more time for the folks in the back row. BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. I also want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Game Time. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff, so you'll show only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So if you're thinking about going to Raiders and Broncos, Allegiant Stadium coming up on Sunday, you can do that. All you got to do is pick up the app, and it's simple, easy. Find the game, find what you're looking for, put in the criteria, bada boom, bada bing. Again, it'll filter through all the fluff and get you exactly what you need. But it's not just games. It could be theater. It could be movies. It could be any kind of event that you want to go to. Anything live that you need a ticket to, Game Time has you. Priority Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and a whole lot more. My favorite thing that they have is the panoramic view. They have the seat views, so you can actually see what the view looks like from the app before you buy your tickets. And they got the lowest price guarantee, which is obviously very important. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find cheaper tickets. So right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to jump in the keys to victory. And look, when you're 2-8, obviously, there's a lot of things that you need to do right to snap the losing streak that you're on. And right now, the Raiders are currently riding a 6-game losing streak. And I know some will say, cool, lose out everything, get a really high draft pick, go get your quarterback. And that's one way of looking at it. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Whatever you're cheering for, whatever you're rooting for, is fine. That's your prerogative. That's your right, right? I mean, you're a fan of the team. You buy tickets to go to the game. You buy the merchandise. You cut for the team. So no matter what you think the best plan of attack is cool. But for, the exercise that we have here, we're going to go ahead and talk about what it would take for the Raiders to get a victory and keep the Denver Broncos, winless at Allegiant Stadium. They're 0 for all their times that they've been in Allegiant since the Raiders have been in Las Vegas. And really, normally I'll have a big laundry list: offense, defense, special teams, coaching, what you got to do. But with the place that the Raiders are in right now, and really this is only the second week under their new interim offensive coordinator, Scott Turner, the play caller, and I did see some things that I liked about the offense last week against Miami. I want to see the Raiders build off of that. That's really where I want to focus in on. I mean, obviously, there's more than just the offense to look at coming up on Sunday, but I really want the Raiders to try to build off the success that we saw. We saw some sustained drives, right? We saw them get 10, 11, 12-play drives, but we also saw them get field goals as opposed to touchdowns. So, yes, where it was a success as far as the offense made more sense, more rhyme and reason, right? The play calling, the getting the ball to the playmakers, all that was good. Now you want to see them capitalize. You want to see them drive 12 plays, take 6 or 7 minutes off the clock, but I want to see them get 6. I want to see him end up with 7, the extra point instead of a field goal, right? That's how I want to see Daniel Carlson. I want to see him spending his afternoon kicking extra points as opposed to field goals. So that's just one of the main keys, right? That's kind of the base. Build on the offensive production that you had from a week ago. And so, okay, that's the base, that's the tree. What are the branches? How do you do that? Well, some more screen passes, right? We saw screen passes to the tight ends a week ago. We saw screen passes to the running backs, right? We've seen wide receiver screens. More of that is good. Quick hitters, stuff that Gardner Minshew can build confidence off of. Dump offs to the running backs. I mentioned that when we went over the injury report. I think that you're going to see Amir Abdullah and Dylan Lobby, and two things that they do, or one thing that both of those guys do really well, is catch passes out of the backfield. I know Amir Abdullah has been in the league for 10 years, and he could run between the tackles, and he has done that. He's shown to be able to run tough through the tackles, but one, that's not exactly where I want to see him, living and dying all day, is between the tackles. And two, the Broncos have a really good defense when it comes to stopping the run. So if you can get some checkdowns, some glorified runs by just tossing the ball to the running back out of the backfield and pick up 4 or 5 yards a pop, I'm good with that. I'll take that as a glorified run. Those guys are going to have to be involved in the game somehow. And they, like I said, it might just have to be treated as glorified runs. So another branch on this tree that is just building off the offense from last week, got to take a couple deep shots, right? It don't have to be a big branch. right? Because I'm not saying to just go crazy and become the mad bomber, right? I'm not saying that, but they do need to take a couple deep shots. And that's going to mean the offensive line is going to have to hold up a couple seconds longer, right? This is probably going to be the first time that you see the same offensive line out there all year long. They're on version like 6 or 7 of the offensive line, but you're going to get Colton Miller. You're going to get Jordan Meredith. You're going to get Jackson Powers-Johnson at the center spot. You're going to get Dylan Parham at the right guard spot, and you're going to get DJ Glaze at the right tackle spot. So those guys, their communication's got to be on point. They've got to be able to hold up, give Gardner Minshew a couple seconds to allow Trey Tucker to get down the field or DJ Turner to get down the field. Hell, even Brock Bowers can get down the field. I'm not saying he's going to blaze down the field, but they've got to be able to, stretch the field a little bit and take a couple deep shots. Again, that's just another branch to build off the offense that we saw a week ago. Keep Brock Bowers heavily involved. He had 16 targets a week ago. I'm not saying he's going to get 16 targets or 13 catches like he had last week, but he's got to be a guy that gets double-digit targets. He at the minimum, right? Non-negotiables. That's what we like to talk about. He's got to get at least 10 targets a game. He's just that stinking good. And he just finds a way to get open, which is great. Everybody knows the ball's coming to him, and he still finds a way to get open. So that's an element that they gotta make sure they incorporate. Big Mike, they were very intentional about getting Michael Mayer involved last week, right? They targeted him as soon as he came into the game, wanted to get him a touch, wanted to get him into a rhythm. Antonio Pierce told me that when I asked him that question earlier this week. So get him more involved, get him some more reps, right? He was able to shake a little of the rust off on Sunday from being his first game back. So now let him be a little bit more involved. If you can have both those tight ends involved, Big Mike and Brock Bowers, now all of a sudden you're cooking with grease. Now you have an opportunity where you may be able to hit Trey Tucker for a big hitter. You might be able to hit Jacoby Myers a couple extra more times and get him the ball, right? But everything's got to be in rhythm. You got to see some slants, some passes that can get Gardner Minshew some confidence, the ball out of his hands pretty quickly, where he can go to his first read or second read and boom, be good. Like a lot of times, and I had TJ Hujmanzada, a longtime NFL wide receiver, on my radio show on Wednesday, and he said, look, it's going to be very rare that Gardner Minshew is going to get to his third or fourth read. He's going to try to get that ball out at least by his second read just because the offensive line doesn't hold up that well. So, again, going back to the offensive line, having that communication and having that cohesiveness, right, and just being on the same page with each other because, again, this is probably the first or second time that this version of the offensive line is going to be together all at the same time. So that's something you just want to see them continue to grow. I do think this is the best version of the offensive line. Now what does it look like now that they're together for another time? So that's obviously going to be a big element when it comes to the offense. And for the defense, because obviously you're going to need more than just the offense to win this game. The defense just needs to get off the field on third down. They didn't force the Dolphins to punt at all on Sunday. Not one time did they punt. They had 7 drives and 7 scores. The one drive that they didn't score on was the 4-play drive that took 45 seconds right before halftime. And that really was, basically nothing, right? So you don't really even count that one. But the Dolphins, they never punted. Their punter sat on the bench, had a hat on, probably drank a Sprite, drank a water, Gatorade, whatever he was drinking, just chilling. Wasn't doing a whole lot. The defense needs to get off the field on third down, right? If you 3rd and 20, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, Max Crosby hasn't had a sack in about 3 games. Like to see him get home to the quarterback a couple times, get some pressure on him like he did in week 5. And I'll tell you this, you get some added pressure on Bo Nix, you make him get rid of the ball pretty quick, guess what? Some turnovers can happen. Create a couple turnovers. I was on the Silver and Black show. It's going to actually air this weekend with Amber Theo-Harris, and she was asking me what the Raiders needed to do defensively. And I said, honestly, I think they need to get a couple turnovers. They really do. Bo Nix is comfortable right now. Got to make him uncomfortable. So create a couple turnovers, get off the field on third down. Max Crosby needs to have a Max Crosby game, right? Again, he hasn't had a sack in 3 games. I know he knows that. The Raiders obviously are feeling that. He's got to step up and make a couple plays when they need it the most. And I'll say one more thing. Speaking of Amber Theo-Harris, this is something that we both agree on as well. Going back to the offense, this is the final little branch on the tree that is continuing to build off what they did last week. Throw the ball in the end zone. Don't always throw the ball short and try to get a guy to break a tackle or two to get in the end zone. Throw the ball in the end zone. Just do it. I'm tired of seeing them throw the ball short and hope a guy has enough wiggle to get into the end zone. Just throw the ball in the end zone. Brock Bowers is a magnet when it comes to catching the ball. Big Mike is Big Mike for a reason. He's got a big body. He can treat it like like he's getting a rebound in basketball. Jacoby Myers just finds ways to get open, right? There's plenty of guys you could throw the ball to. Just throw the ball into the end zone. It gives you your best chance to score a touchdown. You throw the ball short, you end up short, and you wonder why on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 they're kicking a field goal. Throw the ball into the end zone. You're guaranteed to miss a shot that you don't take. So take a couple shots into the end zone. But that's really all I got for this team this week, right? Again, they're riddled with injuries. We know that. You can't use injuries as an excuse because every team's got them. This team has a plethora of them. They know that, and it's obviously got to be taken into consideration, but you go out there and you play with who you got. It's just that simple. So I think that's how the Raiders put it on the line. I want to keep it kind of simple. Don't need to get too complex, get too deep into the woods here, but that's just what they need to do to get a victory and snap their 6-game losing streak. And trust and believe everyone in that locker room wants to snap that 6-game losing streak. So that's what I got for you for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts are going to close out the show in segment number 3. That's coming up next at 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of our great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, and that is Bilt Rewards. And here's a PSA for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Bilt, well, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Bilt. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you could use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. Let me break it down to you. It goes like this. If you're a renter, I'd start taking advantage of Bilt if I were you. Here's the thing. They earn points on groceries, travel, practically everything else that they buy. There's no cost to join Bilt, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on everyday spending. Bilt points can be transferred to favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. Over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Bilt points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Bilt members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on your rent you already are paying by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use the URL so they know that we just sent you. Joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points on your rent payments today. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a text from Theo. Say, good morning, sir. I don't have a sexy Raider name, just Theo. My issue is I keep hearing about us getting Shador and how he wants to come to the team. The problem is I see if we get him, who's going to mold him? Yes, Tom Brady is part of the team now, but is unable to interfere as far as I know. I don't believe AP is the coach of the future, and with that being said, we'll be looking for another head coach. We all know that if a rookie quarterback comes to a team with no leadership, they usually get wasted. Your thoughts, sir? Mr. Crisp, a.k.a. Theo. Theo, thanks for the text. I definitely appreciate you. And, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Who's going to mold him? Mark Davis has mentioned Tom Brady, as you mentioned. He can help pick the quarterback and help train him up. Maybe that's a scenario. Maybe the Raiders have something with Scott Turner as the offensive coordinator. Maybe that's all they needed was just a different face and a different voice. I do believe that Antonio Pierce is going to be the coach next year. Just my gut feeling. I haven't heard that from anyone. It's just how I feel. But there's a lot to be said. If Mark Davis and Tom Brady have seen enough, maybe they decide to go in a different direction because they don't want to bring in a young quarterback and give him to someone or a coaching staff that can't develop them. I mean, that's something that they're going to have to come up with. I personally think that AP is going to be around. I think that he'll probably change offensive coordinator, probably get an innovative guy, someone that's got some young creativity to him, someone who knows, how to get the most out of a college quarterback. I'll say this, one name that I'll throw out there that you may want to keep an eye on. And this, again, I have not heard this from anyone. This is just my theory, my barbershop theory, sitting around the shop talking about what the Raiders could potentially do. I've said this multiple times, so I would keep an eye on Pat Shurmur. And the reason I say that is he's the OC at Colorado. If, in fact, the Raiders are able to land Shador, I would not be shocked if the Raiders went and made a move to get Pat Shurmur as the OC, only because he's been working with Shador for the past couple years and knows what he does really well, knows what he needs work on. Again, that's just my gut feeling. Not saying that that's going to happen. I haven't heard that from anyone. That is purely my barbershop conversation that I've had, and so I'm going to stick with it until I'm proven otherwise. So thanks, Theo, for the text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Be Easy Raider in San Antonio. He's calling to talk about AP and trying to take a realistic approach to the reality of the season, trying to provide some clarity. Here he is, Be Easy Raider in San Antonio.
Hey, Q, this is Be Easy Raider calling out of San Antonio, Texas. I just wanted to talk real quick on the AP situation, like our struggles and what the Raiders look like moving forward. I feel like I find myself being an apologist for AP, especially with how emotional, how upset all the Raider fans are online, on Twitter, and everyone calling for his job. I just feel like I'm more of a realist, and I think we're downplaying some things that are kind of out of AP's control. Him being the head coach, everything falls under him, but there are a few things. I know you can't use injuries as an excuse, but there's also the reality of injuries. Like, if we looked at what our projected starting defense was going to look like and what it is now, like, it's completely different. Like, we have all this youth and all these mismatched lineups, and there's probably, that's partially probably why some of the discipline is lagged off. These aren't starters. These aren't older veteran players that we thought we were going to be able to depend on for communication and things like that on defense. On offense, I don't think there's any way AP could have guessed that Minshew was going to be as bad as he has been this year, and with all the turnovers and stuff. Also, I don't think he anticipated having one of the worst rushing games in the history, when that's something that he wanted to hang his hat on, was defense, or running the ball and toughness and ball control. I just don't think he could have anticipated just how bad our quarterback would be and how bad our run game would be, and our defense, how depleted it would be at this point in the season. So, I don't know. I feel like we're building it. I feel like he does have the team fighting for him. Like, the offense looked a lot better this week. So just moving forward, I feel like give him another year with the quarterback, getting more pieces, more guys that want to be Raiders in the building, and just see how it goes. I'm more like you, not wanting the turnover and the continual turnover. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Love the show. Listen every morning, first listen of the day. Keep doing your thing. Be Easy Raider out.
Thank you for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And look, the game plan, the approach that they thought they would take clearly has not been what it was supposed to be, right? Top 10 defense, strong rushing attack, complimentary quarterback play. The defense hasn't been top 10. Rushing attack has been non-existent, and the quarterback play hasn't complimented anybody, right? I mean, it's just as simple as that. So, yeah, I mean, the way that things shook out, the way that the season has gone, based off of what they thought and what reality is, it's kind of you know, the math is mathing when it comes to that, right? I mean, just the lack of running game alone tells you all you need to know, right? I mean, that's been reality. Injuries on top of that really hampered the defense in particular. It just seems like nothing ever really had an opportunity to get off the ground the way that they were thinking it was going to. But thanks so much for that call. It's great to hear from you. I appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Grim Raider. It says, "Hey, Q, Grim Raider here from Virginia. How you been? Yeah, this season isn't going the way I thought, and I hoped it would go. You are not on that island alone. I'm right there with you after our pirate ship got wrecked on this here season voyage. However, if the Raiders got no wins at all, I'd still be a proud Raider. The whole badass style, rugged, rough bandits, outlaws, renegades, and the colors, silver and black and logo, of course, our history. The Raiders today are undisciplined, playing soft, sloppy, missing tackles, getting sacked and turning the ball over a lot. And I hate that we're an easy get-right team that any team can have their way with. The Raiders back in the day before my time and even the 90s and early 2000s seemed like a rough and intimidating threat that was a force to be reckoned with. Maybe I'm delusional, but that is how I like to perceive my Raiders. Part of me wants AP to continue and give him a chance to see what he can do and build a good offensive line, and, of course, draft or acquire a franchise quarterback. Even the defense I thought was going to be something special this year. I want to be patient, but I also want to win now. Just win, baby." That's from Grim Raider, and thanks for the text. And, yeah, again, like I was saying earlier, what it was supposed to be and what it has been totally different. And, AP wanted to have that early 90s, early 2000s, tough, intimidating, run tough between the tackles, downhill, physical, right, and intense, and all that, ill will, and just all that. The way that the Raiders beat the Chiefs on Christmas is really what they wanted to do. Obviously, they wanted to be able to score more offensively and not have to lean on the defense to score, but it just hasn't come to fruition for one reason or the other, and there's plenty of reasons for that. There's plenty of blame to go around. I think that, AP will – this is just my gut feeling. He'll come back next year and have an opportunity with his quarterback, because clearly neither one of these guys were the quarterback that he wanted. He wanted the guy that's in Washington that's doing a great job. He wanted to go out and make sure that they got that young dude, and they weren't able to do that. He didn't want a Band-Aid. That's what he told us multiple times. And he ended up with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And Aiden O'Connell didn't even get an opportunity because he's been banged up. Now, he might return next week for all we know, or maybe the week after that. But, he'll have an opportunity probably to showcase what he can be. I think that AP needs to get a chance to come back with a quarterback of his choice that he believes is the right guy for the job. And I'm sure that Tom Brady's going to have a lot of say in that. I'm sure Mark Davis is even going to have some say in that. And I do believe Shedeur Sanders is probably at the top of their list. Will they get him? Well, that still remains to be seen. But thanks for the text. I appreciate you. Up next, got a quick call from Raider X. He's calling to ask a simple and quick question about Antonio Pierce. Here he is, Raider X.
Yo, Q, this is Raider X. Just wanted to pose a really quick question, very simple question. Can Antonio Pierce keep the position of head coach for the Raiders if they continue to lose this season and get their draft spot that they need to get that quarterback? Or do they have to string together a couple wins? That's it. Raider X out. Look forward to your feedback.
Thanks for the call, and I guess the quick question was right. I wish I had a good answer, right? Look, I've been asked this a few times. I want to say that he'll need to win a couple more games, but like I've said before on the show, and I've said, just in conversation with anyone who wants to talk some Raider football, the way that he acts, the way that he walks, the way that he talks, doesn't sound like a guy or look like a guy that's concerned about his job. He's a guy who sounds like he's very comfortable in where he's at, and it's pretty confident that he's going to be coming back next year. He even talked about some players this past week about he's hoping that they come back next year. He's hoping that they're able to get re-signed next year, like a Robert Spillane and, some other guys that are on expiring deals. So, again, I just like to pick up on the little things that just give me clues to possibly what's going on. And so, maybe when we talk to him today, maybe I'll have an opportunity to ask him a question that maybe he can give me a little clarity on it without just saying, hey, are you worried about losing your job? Right? I don't want to be that guy. But I can ask a question that makes it sound, not makes it sound like, but just one that, kind of alludes to, how does he navigate through the season knowing that he only has a couple wins and it's a production-based business, something like that. I'll work on it. I got something in the hopper, but I'm interested in, I'm wondering how MD feels, how Tom Brady feels, how others feel, right? Do they want to see AP have an opportunity with the quarterback that he believes he can win with, or have they seen enough? And if they've seen enough, then there's no guaranteeing at all that he'll be back. So thanks so much for the call, my man. Appreciate you. And it was a quick and simple question. Doesn't have a quick and simple answer, clearly. Raider X, thanks so much. Up next, got a text from Manny V. So what's up, Q? Manny V, I just seen that Mark Davis is selling 15% of the Raiders. Not sure if this is true or not, but if so, what is your thoughts about this? I doubt Mark needs money. Is he on his way out? That's Manny V. Thanks for the text. And no, he's not on his way out at all. What he's doing is, and I had to get some clarity on this myself, is that he's really just selling off small percentages of it to get basically more cash in hand. The Raiders have plenty of salary cap space. The Raiders as an organization are very valued, very high, like $7 billion, but that doesn't mean that they're cash rich. And that's always been the one thing when it came to, organizations. They always say the Raiders are cash poor. So my understanding is that he's just selling off these small percentages to get actual cash in hand, more physical cash, right? To actually have that in hand. And also this latest group that apparently he's selling, maybe a 15% total to is really good in the business side of things as well. So be able to do some good things for the organization on the business side of things. Again, that's the understanding that I have. Vinny Bonsignor and the RJ put out a really good piece on it. He wrote about it. I know Tashawn Reed did in The Athletic as well. So there's a couple places that you can go reference and check it out and get a little bit more clarity. But that's the understanding that I have on that situation, because it made me scratch my head at first as well. When I saw it, I was like, wait, hold on. He just sold 10% to Tom Brady and crew, and now he's selling some more. But that's why my understanding is to get more cash in hand. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. We'll close out with a call from Tenzo in the DMV. He's calling to give his thoughts on this season and what he feels it ultimately is. Here's Tenzo in the DMV.
Q, Tenzo from the DMV. Let's call this season what it is, a reset. Players that our brains trust, including AP, need to fulfill their vision of the team are not here. Our GM finally started the move in that direction with this year's draft. Best draft we've had in ages. AP wants to pound the rock and hit up that play action pass. You should have kept JJ. Only mistake I've seen from this group. AP needs this type of players. His dogs, as one would say. We have only one veteran dog that is pseudo-healthy in Mad Max. I stress patience with the nation. We need continuity from the top down. As that punk QB in New York would say, relax. Thanks for all that you do, Q. Just win, baby.
Tenzo. Rolling on Orenzo's. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it. You make a lot of sense, right? A reset sounds about right? It makes plenty of sense. We know that the Raiders weren't able to get their quarterback in the draft. We know that they got some pieces. The first, second, and third round picks look really good. Brock Bowers, JPJ, DJ Glaze, that looks good. DeCam Richardson's getting some burn now as a fourth round pick. So some young guys are getting some experience. Jacorian Bennett, second round pick, looks really good. Looks like a guy to build around. Guys like Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs, there's obviously going to be questions with Nate because he's on the contract year. So his contract's expiring. But Jack Jones, is he a guy that they can build around? There's definitely pieces that they have to get excited about. But at the end of the day, they need that trigger man. They need the quarterback. So could you imagine like a Shador or a Cam Ward having a guy like Brock Bowers to throw the ball to? I mean, you want to talk about a security blanket. That'll help you get acclimated to the NFL real quick, having a dude like that. So, that's makes sense what you said. And again, it would kind of go back to the theory that I have where Antonio Pierce is not worried about his job because he feels pretty comfortable that he'll be back next season. But thanks so much again for that call. It's great to hear from you. And thanks so much for the feedback, Raider Nation. Thanks for a fantastic week, right? Even though the season has not gone the way any of us wanted, 2-8, we still have plenty of feedback, plenty of action here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, and we'll continue to do that throughout the course of the season and obviously into the offseason as well. So enjoy your weekend, Raider Nation. Enjoy the game. If you're going to be at the game, meet me at the Torch. I'll be there early. I'll have the pregame show. It's called Q's Kickoff. It's an hour before the official pregame show, and then I'll hang out there probably till about maybe 12:45, 12:50, and then kickoffs at 1:05. So I would love to meet and greet with as many people that come by and say what's up. I'll be there at the Torch where JT and EA are doing the pregame show from. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll be back on Monday. And as always, just win, baby.